Hi, everyone. Welcome. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. Hi, everyone who's joining us. We're going to get started in just 1 minute. Get started. Next slide, please. Thank you all for joining us today for this informational webinar on the California Firefighter Cancer Prevention and Research Program. My name is Sen Poole, and I'm a program officer in the Research Grants Program Office, or RGPO, in the Research and Innovation Department of the University of California Office of the President. A couple of logistical items as we get started. We're saving the last 20 minutes of our hour together to answer questions. So as we present information, please do use the chat function to submit your questions. Also, if you haven't already, please just confirm for yourself that your microphone is muted. We will cover the listed topics today to give you a clear sense of the California Firefighter Cancer Prevention and Research Program. This includes the types of grants available, what goes into a letter of commitment or a letter of intent, community-based participatory research, how you can get support with finding a project partner, and how to apply with a letter of intent in Smart Simple. Our presenters today include Derek Irwin of FIRESCOPE, California, program officers from the RGPO, Nick Anthis, Vanity Campbell, and myself, and Deanna Cox from the RGPO Contracts and Grants Unit. Next slide, please. First, a bit of background about the program. In 2023, the state of California established this program with the vision of encouraging community-based participatory research between the University of California and California Fire Service. A little later in the presentation, I'll share more details on community-based participatory research. The program will award grants to partnerships between the Fire Service of California and the University of California. Non-UC organizations can be part of the broader team of a fire service and UC partnership. They do not, however, serve as principal investigators on a grant. The goal is to support research that will help to prevent cancer in firefighters, as well as research that leads to lowering the incidence of California firefighters' cancer. Now I'd like to hand it off to Derek Irwin of FIRESCOPE. Next slide, please.
Good afternoon. My name is Derek Irwin. I am a career firefighter with the Los Angeles County Fire Department, also an assistant adjunct professor in the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry at UCLA. And I also chair the FIRESCOPE Cancer Prevention Subcommittee. Some of you may not be familiar with FIRESCOPE as an organization. It's basically a state run organization that exists in order to facilitate interoperability between all of our fire departments here within the state of California. This often is, things like large brush fires, earthquakes, and things like that. But also one of the key goals of FIRESCOPE is to address issues that are of importance to the fire service. And cancer is one of our most important health and safety topics. So as you may or may not be aware, firefighters are exposed to a myriad of carcinogenic agents in the line of duty. This includes products of combustion during structural firefighting responses, wildland-urban interface responses, vehicle fires. There's also shift work with sleep disruption, diesel exhaust, asbestos, particulate matter, and the list really goes on and on from there. And the extent of our occupational exposures and the incidence of cancer in the fire service is such that the International Agency for Research on Cancer actually classifies firefighting occupational exposure as a firefighter as a group 1 carcinogen based off of evidence demonstrating a causal association between working as a firefighter and multiple cancers. If we can advance, please. Now, in their monograph citing firefighting as a group 1 carcinogen, IARC also cited strong mechanistic evidence of 5 of the key characteristics of carcinogens. Those were, in particular, genotoxicity, epigenetic alterations, oxidative stress, chronic inflammation, and receptor-mediated cell cycle effects. Again, many of which can be associated with or tied back to the multiple occupational exposures that we have as firefighters, particularly in the California Fire Service, where we have this unusually high burden of wildfires in addition to our standard municipal firefighting duties, which makes our exposures here in California very distinct than elsewhere in the United States in the fire service. Next slide, please. So despite the research, the great research that's been done up to this point that led to the IARC classification of firefighting as a group 1 carcinogen, there's still a lot that remains to be done. Not much research has been done investigating hallmarks of cancer and several of the other key characteristics of carcinogens, such as alteration in DNA repair or immunosuppressive effects. And one of the key goals or hopes among us in the fire service for this program is to develop data-driven interventions to reduce our cancer risk. So you may or may not be familiar with the NIOSH hierarchy of controls there in the bottom left corner of the slide, where our hope is to conduct research in partnership with all of you great researchers in the University of California system in order to develop preventative interventions that would reduce our occupational exposures and ultimately reduce our cancer risk. Now, this poses a unique challenge for us in the fire service because unlike other occupations where you can hit the pause button to address occupational exposures to carcinogenic agents, we're in quite a different situation where the majority of our exposures to carcinogens occur in the midst of emergencies. And rather than having a pause button to hit, we're in the situation where the fast forward button is being hit. And again, that's our hope is that we can, in partnership with the University of California researchers that are interested in this program, develop interventions that are compatible with our public safety duties, because that's where the real challenge lies insofar as reducing our cancer risk. So with that, I thank you for your time. I'll be available for questions at the end, and I'll turn it over to Nick.
Thank you so much, Derek, for really putting it so well. Why we're here doing this right now, and why we're excited to be here and have all of you joining us and expressing your interest in this. So my name is Nick Anthus. I'm a senior program officer for special initiatives at the Research Grants Program Office at the University of California Office of the President. So I'm going to go first give you a few notes about how this funding opportunity is set up. So this program is funding community-based participatory research, or CBPR, projects that'll involve at least one partner based in the fire service and one partner based at a University of California location. We'll be funding research to prevent and reduce cancer among California firefighters through a variety of ways, but with a focus on understanding the biology of cancer risk in firefighters in a way that can inform intervention strategies to lower that risk. Excuse me. So this program is administered by the Research Grants Program Office, or RGPO, that's at the UC Office of the President, and that's in consultation with FIRESCOPE. And we'll talk more about the application process later, but I wanted to highlight that the proposals submitted to this will ultimately be evaluated through a two-step process that involves peer review by experts and community members from outside of California, and then a programmatic review conducted by FIRESCOPE. And just one other note that these awards they'll be structured as collaborative agreements, which means that the program is involved to help facilitate and guide the project work to an extent, and that part of that includes convening a FIRESCOPE advisory committee that will provide firefighter expertise and leadership perspectives for the projects. All right, next slide, please. So as part of this, we're offering two types of awards. So there are pilot awards, which are for earlier stage projects, and these provide up to $300,000 in direct costs over 2 years. And then full awards, which are for more developed projects and more established teams that have more preliminary data. And these will provide up to $750,000 in direct costs over 3 years. And I would just encourage you to please review the RFP for more details on these awards. Next slide, please. So the founding legislation for this program requires CBPR as a key element of this work. And so the first priority that you see here relates to that requirement. It also calls for projects that'll have a positive, direct, and timely impact on the California Fire Service through the prevention of cancer in firefighters. So in addition to the CBPR requirement, a responsive application will address at least one of these priorities or multiple priorities that will help understand the causes of cancer in firefighters and thus help prevent cancer in California firefighters. All right, next slide, please. So the RFP gives a few examples of potential research topics, and those are just examples. They're not. It's not meant to be a comprehensive or exhaustive list. It also gives these examples of types of projects that would not be responsive to the RFP, and I think these are fairly self-explanatory. But you can also refer to this list in the RFP too. Next slide, please. So as noted before, applicant teams need to be led by a co-PI from a California-based fire service organization and a co-PI from a UC location. And so the fire service organization can be any California-based group that's composed of actively serving or retired California firefighters. That could include state or local fire agencies, firefighter labor unions, or fire departments, or other formal or informal groups of firefighters that meet these criteria. And the fire service organization, it does need to include individuals who experience occupational hazards to products of combustion as firefighters. And that's spelled out in the RFP again too. Next slide, please. So one of the co-PIs will serve as the applicant co-PI, and that can be either partner from the fire service or from the UC location. But it's the applicant co-PI, that's the administrative role. This is who's actually submitting the application. But just it is important to note that both of the co-PIs are considered co-equal partners in this work, regardless of who the applicant co-PI is. And so you can only serve as a co-PI on one proposal for each award type, but you can contribute as a co-investigator to other proposals, potentially. And the project and team should be based in California, though additional partners from outside of California can participate if that participation is well justified. Okay, well, that's a little rundown. Like I said, please refer to the RFP for the details, and if you have any questions, we'll take those in a little bit. In the meantime, I'd like to turn it over to my colleague Vanity Campbell to talk through some more of the details of the timeline and the application.
Thank you, Nick. This is a new grant program launched earlier this month on January 18th, and today's event will be the only scheduled informational webinar. So thank you so very much for joining. Use this as an opportunity to learn about the program as well as meet potential partners. The program consists of a two-step application process requiring a letter of intent or LOI due on February 29th at noon. And as Nick has outlined, the application can be submitted by one named co-PI, either the University of California academic co-PI or the Fire Service co-PI. The submitting co-PI or applicant will initiate, complete, and submit the LOI submission by noon on February 29th within the RGPO Grant Management System Smart Simple, which you'll hear more about later today. The program will review the LOI submissions and invite applicants by March 14th. Invited applications must be submitted by June 13th at noon. And for the purposes of planning your projects, awards will have a start date of December 1st, 2024. I'd like to also go over the LOI content. For the required LOI, you will select an award type, either the pilot or the full grant. The applicant will also provide a descriptive title, that is, along with their contact information. And again, LOIs can be submitted by only one named co-PI at this given stage. If the other co-PI has been identified, then you'll also provide their contact details along with the names of the applicant organizations. The LOI includes a short description of the proposed research effort. This section is limited to 500 words, and we will also request an optional field where you can suggest academic and fire service peer reviewers that are located outside of the state of California. The LOI does not request a full budget, but you will provide an estimated budget amount. For the pilot awards, that's going to be limited to $300K and direct cost over 2 years. For the full grants, that's going to be limited to $750,000, also direct cost for 3 years. And the LOI will be finalized by the applicant certifying the submission and providing an electronic signature. Only the invited applications will have access to prepare a proposal in the next stage of the process. And with that, I'd like to have the next section shared by my colleague, Sin Poole.
Thank you. So CBPR as a methodology has been around for decades. The core of the methodology is that an authentic partnership is formed and it functions between a community of interest and an academic institution. In this program, it is the California Fire Service and the University of California. CBPR can be useful across a continuum of research types, and in this program, it can be from research at the cellular level through to population-wide interventions. The co-principal investigators from Fire Service, California Fire Service, and University of California, and their broader team, partner to identify the research aims, develop the research methodology, implement the project, gather data, conduct analysis, and report out the results. And by this, we mean reporting out to academic audiences and more. The more can include the fire service community and broader interested communities. Next slide, please. Effective CBPR includes multiple types of balance. Attention is paid to both fire service and academic interests, while centering ethical practice and relevance of the research to the fire service. There's also a balance of research with an eye toward practical outcomes and action. Capacity is built for both partnering and research during the development and implementation of the project, as well as the dissemination phase. Next slide, please. And the CBPR team itself includes both the fire service co-PI and staff and the broader community of firefighters. I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. It also includes the academic co-PI and staff, and it rests on the ability of the team to work well together, to have 2 committed co-PIs, and my eyes are not picking up on this, sorry. Oh, a broad and diverse team. Apologies. Next slide, please. So the benefits of CBPR include that it does benefit the community. It answers important questions. It develops research and evaluation skills if there are to be developed. It funds the community. It builds capacity of the community of interest, and it provides data for both advocacy and change. We also know that it improves the production of knowledge. So the methodology and the analysis are strengthened because the fire service is at the table and is developing the questions, the ways that it will be answered, and they're doing this in tandem with their academic partner. The results are more likely to be disseminated and used. It also benefits the academic field in that it enables an ethical way to reach communities. It leverages the community knowledge, and that helps to create more relevant research. And the research is often used for change. And on the academic side, it can provide data for publications, and it can fund the academic person. Next slide, please. So this table just shows a bit of traditional research versus community-based participatory research and what some of the advantages can be. So within traditional research, the expertise, the knowledge, the capacity, it sort of sits within an expert that is not centered in community necessarily. Within CBPR, the expertise is actually drawn from multiple perspectives, and chief among them is the California Fire Service Department and other co-principal investigators. So the team of stakeholders is having their expertise impact the all facets of the project and the research. The capacity for research ends up being built internally so that when an academic expert is not around, there is still that capacity to do research. And often the capacity for partnering authentically grows within both organizations and/or institutions. It's unclear whether the capacity for partnering grows when it's traditional research. And so that can be an advantage of CBPR. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned earlier, so the fire service co-PI, that portion of the larger team includes firefighters as well as the fire service co-PI. And to be a strong co-PI, it would require experience with the topic being researched, the trust of the fire service or the community involved in the research, and importantly, skills for representing the community of interest or the fire service and being a conduit with a larger community so that the PI is representing, of course, what they know and also the knowledge of the larger or broader fire service community. A strong fire service co-PI sees themselves as a collaborator, and they do enjoy teaching because a lot of bidirectional capacity building takes place within a strong CBPR project. The academic co-PI is someone who is trained and experienced in both the topic that is being researched and has the research skills necessary to complete the project. They are very often connected to other types of scientific expertise and can pull in those collaborators as needed within a project. The academic co-PI also sees themselves as a collaborator and similarly enjoys teaching, as that capacity, as I mentioned, is bidirectional, the capacity building. Next slide, please. And as was mentioned earlier, the letter of intent is due February 29th, 2024, and it may be submitted with only one co-PI named at that point. The program can provide technical assistance with finding an appropriate partner, co-PI, and for other aspects of the application. We do want you to email the California Firefighter Cancer Prevention and Research Program at the email noted here for any technical support that is needed in finding an appropriate partner co-PI and with other questions that you have about the content of the LOI. It's important to note that invited applications are going to require that both co-PIs are named and have developed a memorandum of understanding for their partnership. Next slide, please. I'd like to hand it over to my colleague, Deanna Cox, who will talk about how to submit a proposal in Smart Simple.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am Deanna, and I'm a pre-award team lead with the Contracts and Grants Unit of RGPO. And Contracts and Grants works in collaboration with the California Firefighter Cancer Prevention and Research Program, serving as an interface on administrative and procedural aspects of your LOI and application submission and review process. If you need to contact us, please reach us at rgpogrants@cop.edu. Next slide, please. So all materials must be submitted through Smart Simple by the deadlines that appear in the table above. And detailed instructions are provided on the UC Research Initiatives website under Initiatives and Special Funds, and they're also available in Smart Simple. Please start early so you can become familiar with the Smart Simple system and submit early, as no late applications will be accepted. Next slide, please. So you must prepare and submit your application online using Smart Simple. The link and detailed instructions are available on the UC Research Initiatives website. All users accessing Smart Simple for the first time should click register here to register and create an account. And we'll talk about this in the next slide. Applicants who have previously registered with Smart Simple and are returning to complete an in-progress application should enter their username and password under login and click the login button on the Smart Simple homepage. If you run into login issues, please feel free to contact us. Next slide. So this is a screenshot of the Register Here page. Here you will enter all details, click the I am not a robot box, and click Submit to create your account. Once the account is created, return to the main Smart Simple page and log in using your account information. If you complete this form and receive a message indicating that an account with your email already exists, then return to the main login page and click the Forgot Password link. Next slide, please. So once you are logged into Smart Simple, you can access the application materials by clicking on Available Funding Opportunities in the upper right-hand corner. You will see a list of all open funding opportunities. Find the row that corresponds to the award type you're interested in and click Apply. Once you click Apply, please complete the eligibility questions and review the helpful hints. Next slide, please. So the application instructions, as you can see, are also available for download on this page. And you will now be able to complete a letter of content. Click one time, please. Vanity. Thank you. You'll click through the section headings to complete the LOI. And for the purpose of today's webinar, I'm not going to go through each section, but if you have questions or find you need guidance on how to complete the sections, please refer to the instructions or contact us if you need further assistance. One more click. Please note that you must click Submit LOI when you're done. Otherwise, your LOI will only be saved in the system and not submitted to us. And once you've submitted an LOI, you will get an email confirmation. If by chance you do not receive this email, first check your spam folder, then please contact us so we can confirm with you if your LOI has been submitted. Thank you, and I will return the presentation over to Sen.
Thank you. So looking through the, let's see, next, oh, you've got it. Thank you, Vanity. Looking through the chat questions so far, I see that there is a question about the 2 grant mechanisms. Are there indirect costs associated with these grants?
Yeah, I'm happy to take that, Sen, and thanks for the questions, and please put any other questions in chat. Indirect, so this it's spelled out in a bit more detail in the RFP, but yeah, there are indirects. So the numbers we gave you are the maximum direct cost amounts. And indirects for UCs are paid out at IDC rate of 35%. For other institutions, it's your negotiated indirect rate, which varies, but if you don't have one, it would be a 25% indirect rate. I can also take the question about how many applications will be funded. The short answer is that depends. Of course, it depends on what applications come in and the balance between the pilot versus full awards, which there's not a predetermined number of applications we're trying to fund. So, it could potentially be total, half a dozen to a dozen applications, probably somewhere in the middle of that is what to expect. So fortunately, there's about $6 million for awards. So we do anticipate being able to fund several projects, which is great.
There's a question of, can non-UC investigators be involved in this study team?
Yes, they can. The co-PIs, of course, one needs to be from a fire service organization and one does need to be from a UC, but you can have others involved from outside of either of those, including other universities or other organizations in California can participate. And as we mentioned, people outside of California, if well justified, could participate as well.
And Nick, or Vanity, will the LOI be used as a screen and the proposals need to be invited?
Thank you, Sin, and thank you for that question. The LOIs will be used to help prepare for the full peer review process for invited applicants. We'll also be using those LOIs to support team building. So again, if you're naming one co-PI, and that co-PI being you yourself completing the application in Smart Simple, but you are seeking an additional co-PI, then you should indicate that you're seeking a co-PI and request technical assistance. And then we are requiring the LOI. So in order to be invited to the full proposal stage, you must submit an LOI.
And Nick, there's a question. Can the firefighter cohort partners extend beyond California for more sample sizes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, I would say that, the intent of this funding is to help the California firefighter service. And the research activities should be conducted in California. So I think generally your sample should be focused on California. I think if there are anything that you want to take place outside of California, it would really need to be well justified. But and I think that's if you have a specific question around that, I would encourage you to reach out to us directly. We're happy to look at that before you submit an application too, as helpful.
Another question for Nick. If only one co-PI can be named at this stage, can there be an additional co-PI added at the proposal stage?
Yeah, that's right. It just at a so it's at the LOI stage. Actually, at the LOI stage, you can name both co-PIs at this stage, and if you have both co-PIs, that's great. We just in order to make it as accessible to folks who might be newer to this area too, we did decide to let folks apply, submit an LOI with only one partner. But certainly, if you have both partners now, there is a place to name both of them on the LOI. But if you don't, you can go ahead and submit an LOI, and we'll be helping do some technical assistance to help people find partners.
For the nomination of external peer reviewers, how do you plan to avoid biased review and conflicts of interest? As a note, NIH precludes naming specific grant reviewers.
Yeah, so I'm happy to take that. I'll say so the Research Grants Program Office has quite a bit of expertise and experience in managing peer review competitions in a wide range of areas across UC and across the state of California. So we generally follow an NIH style review process. And that's generally the process we're following for this funding opportunity too. So we certainly take conflicts of interest very seriously. And when we are putting together a review panel, that's one actually the primary reason why reviewers are all from outside of California. That's a first step to minimize conflicts of interest. But actually, we look really carefully at the submitted applications and personnel and examine them for potential conflicts. So I think the question might have come up because it mentioned that we do, as on the LOI, and I believe in the application, you can suggest reviewers, which we're always happy to get suggestions, but we look at those very carefully and look for conflicts of interest, and we have a pretty detailed conflict of interest policy that specifies how we go about trying to minimize those conflicts, which is of course a really important part of research grant funding competitions.
Great. I'm going to go ahead and take this next question. Do the mechanisms include work with animal models? And so the answer to this question is going to depend a bit. So with community-based participatory research, the research question really grows out of the community of interest. So it's going to depend on what the question is that the fire service really wants and needs answers to. Then they're connecting with an academic partner, and together they're determining, the partner of course lends their expertise on different ways to answer that question. It is possible that animal models might be included in that process. At the same time, I really want to emphasize that the partnership is between the academic co-PI and the fire service co-PI, and they need to really develop a project that is highly relevant to the community and does not cut the community out of the process of doing the project. I hope that helps, but also you can send an email to firefighter-cancer@ucop.edu for additional questions on this topic specifically.
So we have a hand raised.
Okay, David Volt.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, I had a question about the expectations of the program in terms of assessing different classes of carcinogens, because considering that firefighters are exposed to a complex mixture of carcinogens, I'm just wondering whether the program is expecting research teams to look at multiple classes of carcinogens, like flame retardants, PFAS, et cetera, or would it be, or are you expecting teams to focus on one class of carcinogen? I was kind of skimming through the RFA and it wasn't really clear to me.
Yeah, I'm going to start to answer that, but I'm also going to ask my colleague Derek to jump in a second. And my perspective is that we are trying to be as open as possible at the letter of intent stage. And we have seen research in the past that has looked at a single carcinogen and research that has been successful that has looked at multiples. Derek, I would really like to encourage your feedback on this as well.
Yeah, thank you, Sen. Certainly exposure to mixtures of carcinogens and multiple carcinogenic agents is one of the things that makes studying cancer in the fire service so challenging. So I would, mixtures in particular is something that would be of interest. But I think, we in the fire service most certainly would be interested in research that involve, classes of chemicals, for example, like PAHs or polyaromatic hydrocarbons, or VOCs, or PFAS. From my understanding from the RFP, it doesn't require, study of mixtures. But our hope as firefighters is to just understand the nature of our occupational exposures, recognizing that there's individual exposures and that there's mixtures of exposures.
Thank you so much. I see another question in the chat that I'll go ahead and answer. So if we are a firefighter association department, what is the best way to find a co-PI for possible research programs? Is there an email group to match co-PI? Yes. Email us at firefighter-cancer@ucop.edu, and we will be able to provide technical support for both firefighter co-PIs as well as academic co-PIs in finding partners. Let's see. So the next question is from, so the San Francisco Firefighters Cancer Prevention Foundation is looking into a particular nutraceutical that has shown great promise to neutralize benzene and other toxins. This would be in conjunction with UCSF. This would be a pilot study. Does this fall within the parameters of a pilot grant? So it sounds like you are in the initial stages of examining this question, and for that reason, it would fall within the parameters of a pilot grant. It also sounds like you have a UCSF and San Francisco Firefighter Cancer Prevention relationship or working relationship. So that also makes this project fall within the parameters of a pilot grant. I am going to ask my colleague Derek Irwin to comment on this, as well, as I am not familiar enough with the research question to see if it falls within the parameters of our priority areas.
Yeah, from just what I'm able to gather from the written question, it sounds like it does. It looks like there's a pilot study to reduce toxicity of benzene exposures, which is certainly something we're exposed to in products of combustion.
Thank you. There's another question. I think this one will go to Nick. To add on to the co-PI question, can there be 2 co-PIs from the academic side? This is especially important for team science and collaboration.
Sorry about that. Just trying to unmute myself. I believe the answer to that is yes. Is that correct, Sen?
Mhm.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think we said there you need to have at least one co-PI at least one UC co-PI and at least one fire service co-PI, but there can be more. So that's great. Yeah.
And I thank you, Nick. I would also add that there can be 2 fire service co-PIs or more. And I think mainly the limit would just be the budget and the project that you are trying to put together, as there is a requirement that co-PIs spend at least 10% time on the project. So that does also come into consideration when you are thinking about how many co-PIs to have on the team. And I would also add that if there are, on the academic side, if there are multiple investigators interested in being involved at the UC, there, of course, co-investigator is an option, as well as a consultant is an option to continue to support the team science and the collaboration and have the appropriate amount of academic and fire service co-PIs engaged.
And I'll build on that by sharing that the full invited application will allow you to describe and name the entire key personnel team. So the LOI has the limit of identifying one co-PI from an academic co-PI from a UC institution or location and one fire service co-PI.
The next question I can answer is, can you assist in finding co-PIs for the applicants outside California? And I may ask you to flesh this out a bit further, but as I'm reading this, applicants outside of California cannot serve as co-PIs for this program. This is a program that is funding California-based research with California co-PIs. And if I got that wrong, please add another question or comment in the chat or raise your hand. The next question, I think, is for Nick, because does the UC co-PI have to be faculty or staff or a PhD student? Could you expand on that eligibility a bit, please?
Yeah, happy to. So the co-PI, the UC co-PI does need to have principal investigator status, so which can be either conferred by certain positions, tenure track faculty positions and others, or you'll have to get a PI waiver from your institution. And then that's just up to the individual institution. And you can talk to your grant management or research office team more about that.
And the next question, can the project focus on social factors, which can be a key factor to help cancer prevention? And so for this question, I would like to answer it in that the questions that are posed in the project need to come from the fire service. And if for the fire service, they have specific questions around social factors that are impacting the development of cancer, as you're mentioning prevention in your question, then that is something that the academic co-PI would hopefully have the expertise to help figure out how best to approach this question. So I may sound a bit vague, but I'm trying to emphasize that the question needs to come from the fire service department and be a question that is of most urgency to that department. And so if that department is saying there are social factors which they think can be a key factor to help cancer prevention, then in that situation, the project could focus on that.
Can I add to that for a moment, Sam? This is
Yes,
Derek.
please.
Yeah, just one of the key things from the RFP also is relating any project back to the hallmarks of cancer and key characteristics of carcinogens. So as firefighter culture relates to our occupational exposures and how that might impact our exposure to carcinogens, dot, 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 um, uh, as Sen was saying, that could relate back as long as there was a fire department that wanted to address those issues.
Thank you. The next question is, let's see, I believe this will be either Vanity or Nick. Can an academic co-I send in an LOI even before identifying a firefighter co-I to find out if the research idea has merit?
Yes. Again, you'll be indicating that you are seeking a fire service co-PI, and it's during this technical assistance phase of the LOI process that we will be conducting calls and reviewing your project scope and research questions to help with the teaming and identification of a fire service partner.
Right. And
Yeah,
I
and
would also, oh, go ahead, Nick.
oh yeah, I would just add to that, and just note that during the LOIs, just because the question said to help find out if the research idea has merit. We're not the the whether how meritorious an idea is going to be something that's really more evaluated at the full application stage, because that's when we're going to bring in a peer review panel of outside experts. But the LOIs will undergo an initial review just to make sure that they're on consistent with the funding opportunity. But and certainly we can consult with you more on that too if you have other questions about the idea that you want to propose.
Great. Nick, here comes another question for you. Any budget requirements between academic institutions and fire service institutions, like split budgets or budget restrictions on non-UC academic institutions?
Yeah, I mean, the short answer of that is there's not a specific split. Certainly how funds are divided between parts of the team and institutions, it needs to be equitable. All proposed costs need to be well justified. But beyond that, there's not a certain split or limit on non-UCs specifically either. I don't know, Sin, if there's anything else you want to say about the academic community split of funds.
Sure. We do know that there is going to be one project, so any specific project will have two budgets attached to it so that grants are made to the fire service organization and the academic institution. And one of the things that we have found is that reviewers look very carefully at budgets and want to see a very clear description of what will take place with each co-PI's organization. And so if the work is split between the two co-PIs, but the budget is primarily going to one organization, that can have those applications may score lower. So it's very important that the two co-PIs from fire service and UC are having early discussions and very clear discussions about what a budget split that is equitable and appropriate looks like. You will also want to describe that, should you be invited to submit a proposal, you would describe that in your collaborative agreement so that you can give very, very clear information to the reviewers on why the budget is split the way it is. Let's see. So this next one, I think goes as well to Nick, are projects that collect samples from firefighters or have them take surveys eligible? If so, does an IRB from the UC govern for consent and have to be in place when the application is submitted?
Yeah, so great question. Yeah, so human subject research certainly is eligible. Generally, you need either IRB approval or an IRB letter of exemption. And so you would go through your institution for that. You do not have to have the IRB approval in place for at the application stage. That can come later, but noting that these things do often take some time. So I think it is recommended to be proactive about that. But that's not something that has to be in place in the application. But the application will ask about human subjects dimension if you do already have IRB approval. There will be some additional information you need to provide about the human subject research plans too, and that'll be in the full application materials.
And one thing to add to that, the piece around which IRB governs for consent. So I wanted to just add from a partnership perspective that at times there have been community or fire service departments that have a lot of experience with conducting research. Other communities outside of that fire service group, I know of examples where they have set up a community institutional review board and require that protocols go through that institutional review board. So I'm adding that just to say that the partnership will need to discuss if there are two options for an institutional review board, the partnership will need to discuss what they are planning to do. And usually there is a reliance agreement or an authorization agreement between the IRB of record and whichever partner is not associated with that IRB. I hope that's not too vague. But basically, the partnership should discuss it. It may be that you send the protocol through more than one IRB, and it's not automatically assumed that the UC IRB will be the IRB of record. Here's a follow-up question on COPIs for applicants outside of California. So the follow-up is, I'm looking for one or both COPIs from California. I am currently based in Boston, Massachusetts, interested in applying for the LOI. So this one was a little bit of a tough one in that typically these projects, what we're hoping to see is that California-based fire service departments, associations, they are the ones actually coming up with the research question, the things that are most urgent to them. And from that perspective, if someone is based in Boston, Massachusetts, the research would not be growing out of California-based institutions. I do invite you to email us at firefighter/cancer@ucop.edu if you'd like to discuss more. But the way that this question is posed, it sounds like the idea would be coming from someone outside of California. And we really want to fund California-based fire service departments and universities in California. We will be giving a recording of this meeting out to everyone who has attended. It's 1:59 and we do want to end on time. So I would just like to say thank you so much to everyone who has attended today, to Derek Irwin, Nick Anthus, Vanity Campbell, Deanna Cox for your presentations. And also thank you so much for these excellent questions that you have submitted. If you have additional questions come up, we are very interested in hearing from you. Please email us at the email that we've mentioned. We will also send you a copy of the RFP, and we really want to hear from you. So please do email us, even if you think a question is silly. There are no silly questions. Please get in touch with us at that email address. Thank you so much, everyone, and have a great day.